In order to fulfill its mission of protecting human health and the environment, the United States Environmental Protection Agency has issued a National Emissions Standards for Hazardous Air Pollutants rule to reduce emissions of hazardous materials from collision repair shops. By 2011, more than 60,000 repair shop owners in the U.S. will have to follow the new rule. There are more than 60,000 automobile collision repair and refinishing shops in operation across the United States. Many of these shops are located in densely populated commercial and residential communities. EPA's Collision Repair Campaign, CRC, is assisting collision repair shops to comply with the new federal rule by providing training, technical assistance, and outreach to shop owners and local communities. The CRC is helping them establish best management and pollution prevention practices to reduce the negative environmental and health impacts from auto body shop emissions. Most of the materials associated with typical shop activities such as cleaning, sanding, paint mixing, spray painting, and gun cleaning are hazardous air pollutants. They contain heavy metals, volatile organic compounds, and other chemicals of concern, dangerous to our environment and to human health.
My favorite paint job ever was a 1963 AC Ford Cobra that I restored from the ground up.
I had no special equipment, no frame machine. I had a small toolbox. My paint room was something I built out of telephone poles and plastic paper.
In fact, when I first went to work for that company, there were some older people there, and I was approximately 24 years old, and they came up to me and they said, you know, to keep all that bad stuff out of your system, what you need is you need to chew tobacco.
If you go into any auto body shop and you look around and pick up containers and read the contents, you'll find an awful lot of chemicals that can be pretty toxic.
Isocyanates found in many paint shop materials are the leading cause of occupational asthma in the United States.
If you become sensitized to isocyanates, essentially what happens is whenever you're exposed to it, you have an asthmatic reaction.
I was watching all of the problems my dad was having with breathing, and I started feeling that heavy chest, and I started getting the shakes and all the symptoms of hands peeling constantly from being exposed to the chemicals. I had to stop painting about 5 years ago.
The heavy metals and volatile organic compounds found in paint shop materials can cause lung cancer, as well as liver, kidney, and central nervous system damage. And some VOCs can have damaging effects on the reproductive system.
Being inside of a shop, breathing the fumes, breathing the dust, the primers that they spray inside the shop every day, it really affects the technicians. It used to give me, personally, migraines. It used to break the skin out on my hands, you know, dealing with some of these chemicals, touching them in the shop.
People often think of pollution as the smokestack and what's coming out of it from the factory down the street. Well, there's also pollution that comes from smaller shops, like collision repair shops. And although it isn't as obvious, it isn't as visible, the heavy metals are included, and the volatile organic compounds that are included can still be very significant for a person's health. Not only the people who live nearby, but also the people who work in the shop. And because people often live close to these shops, the impact of the emissions can be significant. The new rule affects auto refinishing collision repair shops. The purpose of the rule is to reduce the emissions of air toxics from the operations of the shops. The rule requires that the people who use the guns be adequately trained, because if you're not adequately trained, it's easy to defeat the purpose of the gun. Requires that shops apply the paint in spray booths. It requires that they use guns that have a high transfer efficiency for paint. And it requires that when you're cleaning these guns, that they be cleaned in a way that you don't atomize the solvent or the paint and let it get into the air.
This National Emission Standards for Hazardous Air Pollutants, or NESHAP rule, requires shops to submit an initial notification to EPA or to their state or local air pollution control agency, and shops must keep records sufficient to demonstrate that they are in compliance at all times.
The rule will go into effect for existing shops in January of 2011. For new shops, that is shops that are just opening up now, it will become effective on the day that they open for business.
The Design for the Environment program is part of one of the major partnership programs of the Environmental Protection Agency, and we work in partnership with the collision repair industry, auto refinish industry, and a number of other industries. And our goal is really to promote best practices, which include the use of safer chemicals and use of more efficient technologies that are cost effective to help the workers not only have a very good product when they're finished with their work, but also to help them preserve their health.
These unique technical tools and methodologies can reduce emissions and protect human health and the environment.
For our industry, it's great. I mean, years ago, people painted maybe with a handkerchief over their mouth, generally didn't, smoking while they're painting. I mean, the industry's changed tremendously over the years, and best practices kind of drive that. If we have a set of standards that everybody can work to, it doesn't matter if the rule is making you do it or not. It's the best thing to do. That's why it's called a best practice. And it could be the best thing for the environment, or it could be the best thing for the technician. It just depends, and both are important.
Most shop activities require some type of personal protective equipment, such as respirators, eye protection, and chemical-resistant gloves and clothing. One of the most important best practices: follow OSHA guidelines regarding the proper personal protective equipment.
The best practices really go through the whole refinish process, starting with the sanding.
Dusts created during the sanding process may contain toxic materials, such as heavy metals that are harmful to the lungs and nervous system.
A lot of guys think that the compounds that we use for blend panels, they have silicates in them. They need to wear gloves because silicate is a carcinogen. You need to protect your hands.
When used and maintained properly, vacuum sanders can control 93 to 98% of the dust generated from the disc sanding operation. Vacuum sanders can pay for themselves over time by eliminating expensive repaints, shortening cleanup time, and extending sandpaper life. When wet sanding, wear suitable gloves to protect hands from irritants and abrasive compounds.
While we're doing the solvent wipe down, we need to do that in a ventilated area because the solvents are evaporating off the surface of the car as we're wiping it down and drying it off.
Mix paint in a well-ventilated mixing room. Mix only the amount of paints and coatings you need. Keep all containers shut when not in use.